Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Code with Reza channel. My name is Reza and I'm here to teach you Python. Today, I want to talk about functions. Functions are pre written blocks of code that can be invoked to carry out a certain set of actions. For showing you this lesson, I will use PyCharm. It's easier. So, look at the print function, for example. We can call functions, pass some arguments to the functions and expect them to do something for us. For example, this one prints hello here. Print here is the name of the function and hello is the argument. In order to tell Python that you would like to create a function, you use the def keyword. After def is the function names. Let's define a function. Def means we want to define a function. For example, do nothing. We don't want to do anything. Then a colon at the end become next line. You need to go to the right with four space. One, two, three, four. We can put some documentation here with three double quotes or single quotes. We can put a documentation for the function. This function does nothing. This documentation should always come to the first line after the name of the function. So if this is the function, the first line after opening the function should be the documentation for the function. And this function doesn't do anything, so I will say pass. And because pass is also part of the function, I put it with four space to the right. The indentation is very important. Here, def means we are defining a function. Three double quotes are for writing documentation. And pass means do nothing. In Python, we cannot have empty block of code. So if we don't want to do anything, we have to use pass. We can call it like do nothing, and it does nothing for us. Now let's look at the more interesting function that accepts parameter and does something for us. So let me remove this one. I will say define or def int name. I'll pass two parameters, first name and last name, and column. Then next line, we want to print this one with the first letter uppercase or capitalized. Want to format it, so I use F. This function accepts two parameters, first name and last name. Let's call it print name, my name, and my last name. Reza Ahmadi. I will run it by clicking on this button and then look at here, Reza Ahmadi. So this is the output of the function. We can define parameters with default values in functions. In this case, if nothing is passed for that parameter, then the default value will be used. Let's define a function with a parameter with a default value. So I will remove this, use the same print name, first name, last name. I want to add another parameter, which is a middle name. And I want to give it a default value of empty string. So if we pass a middle value, it will use that middle value. If we don't pass a middle value, it will use the default middle value, which is an empty string. So look at the code. If middle name exists, we print all first name, middle name, and last name. What if not? Else. What if not? Then we don't print the middle name. We ignore it. We can copy this one here easily, put it here, and remove the middle name. Here the middle name has a default value of empty string. So if we don't pass any value for the middle name, then the default value, which is the empty string, will be used. Let's call it with passing a value for the middle name and see how it works. Print name. For example, my middle name is ABC. I run it. Look at here, Reza, ABC, Ahmadi. Now let's call it without passing a value for the middle name. So I will remove the middle name here. This still works. But this time, if you look at here, there is no middle name. If we want to use a parameter with a default value, it should come at the end of the list of the parameters in the function. Here at the end. Any parameter with the default value should come at the end of the list of the parameters in the function. So if I copy this middle name and put it here, it's wrong. It shows the last name as error and it's wrong. We cannot do that. This has to come, must come at the end of it. But this is a good point. When we pass arguments to a function, when we call a function and pass arguments to the function, the order of the values is important. For example, in the print name function, the first value must be first name and the second value must be the last name and the last one has to be the middle name if we define it, if we pass it. But it is possible to call a function without following the order of the parameters. But in this case, we have to pass the name of the parameters too. What I mean is, I need to say, for example, I don't want to keep the order, but I need to specify the parameter. And I say, okay, I want to pass the last name as Ahmadi, and then I want to pass the first name as Reza, and I will pass the, or even let's put the middle name here. Middle name as ABC. Let me run it. Look, here exactly works. Reza, ABC, Ahmadi. The order is not important here. As long as we pass the name of the argument to. In this case, we call these arguments our keyword arguments. Means there is a, it's like a key value, key value, key value. These are keyword arguments, and we use this term a lot in this video. Now imagine we need a function to get some numbers and print them out. But the problem is we don't know how many numbers the user want to pass. In this case, we can use a specific parameter to accept all of them. Let's remove this and create another function. Define print all. Get here star args. Here star args the star means any number of arguments. So I will go through the list because it can be a list of numbers. For arg in args, print arg. And let's call it. I can call this one with print all and only pass one. Let's see what happens. Only shows one. I can call one, two, three, shows one to three, or I can say four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. It doesn't matter how many numbers we pass. The function works. So this star means any number of integers. We can do the same thing for keyword arguments so that it accepts any number of keyword arguments. But this time it's a little bit different. For normal arguments, position arguments, there is one star. For keyword arguments, there are two stars. Let me implement this function for you. For key value args.items, so look, this args is a list of key value pairs. Because if you look at that, the keyword argument is like a key value pair, and name of the argument and value for that. So it's a key value. So in here, we have a list of these key values. So with args.items, we get all these key values. Each one, we call it an item. Then we extract the key and value from that item and we show it here. We can call this function like this. Print all Reza active Ali inactive. So what is happening here is we are passing two items here, two keyword arguments. One, two. This one is one item, this is two item. So args.items returns two items. Key and value, which is key and value. We get it and write it. Let's run it. Look at here. Types the key value. So this is how we can access these elements that or items that are passed to this function. Now let's look at another version of this function. This time we don't want to get key values. We are only interested in the keys. So we say def all star star args. The star star means we are interested in keyword arguments. So for key in args dot keys. Keys. So if I want to run this, I can say let's change the name to make it more meaningful. Keys, print keys, and I would say Reza active and Ali inactive. Let's run it. Only show the keys, Reza and Ali. Now let's show the values. So let's remove this one and say define print values. Again, star star double star args. Now this time we say for instead of key we say for value. in args.values int value, and we can call it the same as before, and it only shows the values. Well, let's make things complicated and interesting. This section is a little bit complicated because it's not intuitive, and it's a little bit different comparing to other languages. So let's start it. Basically, in Python, we can define a function like diff standard arg. This is just the name of the function, and we say print arg. Very simple function. Let's see how we can call it. I want to call it using the position argument. I want to say standard arg, for example, 3. Can I run it? Yes, here it's 3. How about if I call it using keyword argument? For example, I say arg equals 3. Does it work? Again, yes. Here is 3. So when we don't do anything, means we are free to call it using position arguments or keyword arguments. But we can make things a little bit difficult. Now, look at this. Define position only arg. Arg and then this magic character forward slash and then print arg. So when we have a parameter and after the parameter is a forward slash, means this parameter, the arg, must be position only. We cannot call it with keyword arguments. For example, I can say position only with 4 and run it and it works. So it's 4. But if I say arg equals 4, then we have a problem. Look at here. Got some positional only arguments passed as keyboard arguments. It doesn't accept it, which is a little bit weird. This notation is weird for me. So basically, this makes this one position only. How about keyword only? Do we have something like that? Yes. We can define a function only accepts keywords. Let's define one. Keyword only arg. In here, we should have a star first and then the name of the parameter. In this case, when a star comes first, the parameter which comes after the star has to be called using keyword arguments. So int arg and let's see. So if I call it and say keyboard only and say 5, it is not gonna work. Look, there's an error. I have to say arg equals, we have to call this using keyword arguments. Let me call it. Everything is fine now. To make things even more complicated, we can combine the position and keyword arguments together in a function definition. For example, I can remove this one. I can say define combined example. The first one is position only parameter, so I will pass slash after that. The second one is the standard, don't do anything. And the third one is keyword only, so I pass a star before that. Keyword only. Repeat all of them: position only, standard, and keyboard only. So how do we call this function? Combine example. The first one has to be position, so I would say 3. The second one, whatever we want, I would say 5, for example. The last one has to be keyboard argument. I would say 6. Let's run it. 3, 5, 6. That's it. If you learned it, it was a little bit confusing part. If you learned it, that's very good. Functions can also return values. For example, let me define a function for you guys. Define out any number of nums and a separator with the default value of underline. So let's call it. I will call the print out. I will pass a b. Something that I need to fix it is that here I'm saying nums, but it doesn't have to be number. I'm just saying value or whatever item, because here I'm passing characters. I will call this function. It joins these values together and returns. I will assign the return value into X, then I will print it. So let's see. ABC. So this is the result. In Python, there is a concept of unpacking argument list. Let's look at that with an example. You guys remember that we can always create a list with passing a range and inside the range passing two numbers. So it creates a range for us and it creates a list from that range. Can I say args equal 3 and 6 like this? And 6. Can I say arg equals 3 and 6 and say list range args? Args. Can I pass the 3 and 6 like this to the range? No. If I run it, we will see an error. Let's run it. List object cannot be interpreted as an integer. It sees this one as list. It doesn't accept list. But there is a trick that we can do. We can unpack these arguments. But unpacking means extracting these 3 and 6 from this list and pass them separately, not as a list. Extract them and pass them separately. It's easy. We need just to use star. So look at that. Worked. So when we say star, means go to args, find the values inside the args, extract them, and then pass them to the range like this. It's interesting, I guess. Don't be confused by a star here and also a star in the definition of a function. When we use the star in the function definition, means any number of values. It's when we define a function. But when we call a function, not defining, when we call a function, when we pass an argument to the function, this star is for unpacking. We have the same thing for dictionaries. If you remember, we have oops, we have this function, first name, last name, and we print it. We can call this with three different ways. We can say print name, Reza Ahmadi. And you can run it, and it runs without any problem. We can call it with another way. We can call with keyword arguments. We can say Reza equals, sorry, first name equals Reza and last name equals Ahmadi. So in this case, we are passing key value pairs, and it the value of the Reza goes for the first name, the value of the last name goes to the last name. So it also works the same. Look at here, we have two same output. The third one is interesting. I can use unpacking. How? I can say args is a dictionary with first name. His first name is this one, as Reza, and his last name as Ahmadi. Now we can unpack it and pass it to the method. Print name. Now this is keyword argument. So we need to use two stars. Unpack the argument and pass it to the print name. The third one is also the same output. So look at this tree again, just passing by position only, passing keyword argument as a keyword argument, and the last one creating a dictionary. There are some differences, like here is equals, here is colon, here is not inside the single quote, but here is inside the single quote because it's a dictionary. And then unpack the dictionary and pass it to the print name. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Now let's talk about lambda expressions. Small anonymous functions can be created with the lambda keyword. They are syntactically restricted to a single expression. Let's look at an example, a very simple example. I will create a function which returns a function to me. So instead of returning a number or a string or whatever, this function returns another function to me. So let's say def make incrementor, and I accept the parameter n. And in here we can say lambda simple function gets arg and returns arg plus n. So let's see how we call it. So we pass an n to this function. This function then creates another function, sets the n to this n that we passed, and then we can call this function. For example, I can say my incrementor equals make incrementor on 5. So here we have arg plus 5. Now the 5 that we passed here comes and sits here. So the returned function is like this. It's arg and returns arg plus 5. Now let's run it. This is a function. Why my variable is a function? Why is my variable a function? Because this function returns a function. I call that function, it returns a function. I put the function in here, so this variable is a function. So I would say my incrementor, which is a function, I call it again, and it accepts an argument. So I pass 10. So what does it do? It adds 10 to the 5. So returns 15. I can say x equals this one and then print it to see the results. Like 15 here. So many languages have this lambda, and it's an advanced concept, I guess. If this is the first time, then please watch this video again and try to write it yourself so that you understand what's happening here. In Python, we can also define the type of the parameters that the function accepts and also the function return type, so that when you look at the function you understand, okay, it accepts integer, string, what does it return, and things like that. So it's very easy, not complicated at all. For example, define add nums. I want to say I want to get any number of nums, so star nums, and with column I will say integer. I'm saying that I only accept integer. Don't pass me anything. And with this symbol, I will say it will return integer too. So don't expect it to return anything else. And I will here say return, for example, sum of these nums. And I can easily say x equals add nums 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I can print x 15. This was the part 5 of this tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed it. These videos are designed to be short and quick but complete. So please do not forget to watch these videos a couple of times. I will upload the next part in the next couple of days. Please subscribe if you don't want to miss it. Thank you for watching and see you later.